I don't know that the shock is coming,
Okay.
but I do think we're going to see more pain. And let's face it, the Fed's moving of interest rates creates an impact to inflation, creates an impact to the
Right.
economy several quarters later.
Yes,
Right? It doesn't
it's
hit
a
right
lag.
away, right? And that lag is not more present than it is in commercial real estate.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think that we've seen the impact of the rate increases in commercial real estate yet. It's coming.
Okay.
And I do think that there is going to be some pain that comes. Now, if you roll back the clock to the last time capital markets were this challenging, and we're not as challenged as we were back in 08, 09 post-Lehman.
Right.
We're better than we were then, but not that much.
Okay. Welcome to an episode of Strategic Conversations. We host insightful conversations with top business leaders and top minds in the business world. Today, we are hosting Mr. David O'Reilly, the CEO of the Howard Hughes Corporation. Mr. O'Reilly will be a speaker at the Houston Strategy Forum's upcoming customer symposium, and we're excited to host him. He has already shared some tidbits. I think it's going to be fun to have him on September 29th at the Customer Symposium. I'm Ravi Kathuria, the president of the Houston Strategy Forum and author of the management leadership book, How Cohesive is Your Company, and author of Happy Soul, Hungry Mind. Strategic Conversations is hosted by the Houston Strategy Forum. If you value these conversations, please hit like and subscribe to the Houston Strategy Forum's YouTube channel. Today's episode is sponsored by Cohegic Management Consulting and Executive Coaching Firm. Thank you for joining us, and we are looking forward to a great discussion with Mr. David O'Reilly. David, thank you for taking the time to be here for today's strategic conversation. And like I said, we're really looking forward and excited to host you on September 29th at the Customer Symposium. David, thank you, sir. Thank you. Tell us, for our viewers who are not familiar with Howard Hughes, give us a sense for the scope and breadth of Howard Hughes Corporation.
Yeah, today, the Howard Hughes Corporation, we consider ourselves community builders.
Okay.
We build large-scale communities or small cities from New York to Hawaii, Wall Street to Waikiki.
Yes.
Focusing on a scale under which it's not just a residential community, but it also incorporates a workforce.
Yes.
Being in Houston and at the Houston Strategy Forum, I think most folks are familiar with the Woodlands or Bridgeland, and those are two of our communities. And the Woodlands is one of our more mature communities where we've built the roads, we've built the waterways, we built the lake, we built the schools, we built the police station, the office buildings, the apartments, and all of the things that I think help make and curate a wonderful sense of place and community for our residents, tenants, and consumers.
Wonderful. Sir, and I think congratulations are in order. I understand Chevron is going to build a mega campus is it in Cypress or Spring,
Yes.
in one of your master communities?
That's correct. In our community known as Bridgeland in Northwest Houston, right on the Grand Parkway.
That's wonderful. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Of all the communities that the Howard Hughes Corporation has delivered, which is the nearest and dearest to you? Which do you find excites you the most?
Oh, you're asking me to pick my favorite kid.
I am.
I love them all.
I did say we have fun.
Look, they're all so different. Here in the Seaport, we have a world famous concert venue, multiple restaurants, a 50,000 square foot food hall curated by John George. In Hawaii, we're selling, $500 million of condos a year to local buyers, Asian Pacific buyers, mainland US buyers. And in Houston, Columbia, and outside of Las Vegas and Summerlin, we're building essentially small cities, live, work, play, learn, discover communities. But they're all focused on delivering and meeting the demands of our consumer. Okay. And they all have a very similar fabric that weaves through them. And they're all very, very exciting. I'm on the road constantly. I'm in New York today. We're headquartered outside of Houston in the Woodlands, and I'm there a solid 8 days a month. because I just don't think you can run a portfolio like this sitting behind a Bloomberg. You have to be on a plane in the community, kicking the dirt to understand exactly what's going on.
Yes, you brought up Hawaii a couple of times. What happened in Maui is heartbreaking. And I don't know, is there a lesson to be learned from that as we design the communities of the future? How do we create communities that will be protected from the vagaries of nature, right? And weather patterns are changing, climate is becoming more severe. What can we do so that people's homes and businesses are protected?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially in light of all the events that have happened, and not just Maui, but if we rewound this clock, we were having this discussion a couple of years ago, we'd be talking about the storms that have run through Houston.
Yes.
And or the storm that knocked out the entire seaport here in New York City.
Yes.
So building resilient communities, building sustainable communities has been at the heart of what we've done, going back to the foundation of our company, which was Jim Rouse when he started Columbia in the late 1960s. Look, as a master developer, as a community builder, we're not thinking about building that piece of land for tomorrow or next quarter.
Right.
We're thinking about how that piece of land that we're developing is going to impact our residents for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yes.
So we have to be building not just to what's the standard accepted resiliency or sustainability, but much beyond that. And Bridgeland is a great example. When the hurricane came through Houston, we had designed water retention systems using lakes and using the roadways to keep homes dry. And we were lucky, blessed, or smart enough that during Harvey, we didn't have a single home that took on water in Bridgeland.
Ah, wonderful.
And, while the legislation would have said you build to the 100-year floodplain, we built to the 500.
Yes.
And we did that voluntarily because it was the right thing to do. Our kids live in these communities.
Yes.
They go to school there.
Yes.
We have to do the right thing because we're going to be there for the next 50 years.
No, I appreciate that because it is interesting how often we invoke, excuse me, how often we invoke these 500-year events or 1,000-year events, and they seem to be happening every other year. And so, I think the definitions have to change. But as we look at communities, we need to get to the point where we build communities that are safe from water, safe from fire, safe from wind damage, right?
Very difficult to do when you think that most communities are being built by disparate owners.
Yes, disparate builders.
Every corner of the intersection is owned by different people whose motivations are, selfish perhaps, and focused on maximizing profitability for their corner without thinking about the impact of their development on the other three corners.
Yes.
So with the Howard Hughes community, where we own or control all four corners and everything that happens, we're taking that cohesive, thoughtful approach that is taking an understanding of the impact that each development has on its surrounding land and its surrounding residents.
Yes. Yes. No, we need the world over, as climate change happens and water levels, sea levels rise, a lot of communities are going to face very serious questions of what they do with their settlements. But from Canada to California, we have communities that are devastated by fire, to Maui. And so all of this, the toll that it takes on the economy and humanity is huge. We need to think about that.
I agree completely. And no community is exempt.
No community is exempt.
In New York, you have rising water levels.
Yes.
In Houston, you have to worry about rising water. In Las Vegas, you have to worry about water sustainability, drinking water, potable water. And every community has its own set of unique challenges. But I think there's enough technology and I think there's enough innovation that if we embrace it and we lean into it, we can build in a way that is very resilient and sustainable.
Yes. And we need to be, it needs to be a conscious effort, right? It cannot be by default. We need to pay attention because the people who suffer loss of their home is devastating. Businesses get destroyed, small businesses, right? Even large corporations, people's jobs are affected. And so how we dwell, how the human race dwells, we need to start thinking about that carefully and plan accordingly. I appreciate. I want to applaud you. Woodlands certainly is and incredibly for people outside of Houston who may be watching this. That is a fascinating place to be there and be lost completely in nature and still have a vibrant, populated settlement there, right? But it's so integrated with nature. I think it's just beautiful. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Talking about strategy, company strategy, because we're going to be discussing that at the forum on September 29th. What is the process for developing your company strategy? How does that process work? How active it is? How does everyone from the board to your management team to your middle management, even frontline employees, how does everyone get together? What is the process?
Well, it's an in-depth process, and it's one that is always evolving. It's not a set it and forget it process by any stretch.
Yes.
It really starts with our chairman, Bill Ackman. It starts at our board level. Every 18 to 24 months, we'll do a 2-day strategic retreat as a board.
Okay.
And go through an in-depth review of our strategy, where we see shifts and where we see changes, how it could evolve. From there, it leaves the boardroom to the C-suite down to all of our senior executives. And our top 40 leaders meet every 6 months across the company as we kind of disseminate those strategic priorities and the focuses for the upcoming quarters, months, years. And then we have entire company-wide calls and regional town halls where our strategy is disseminated down to every single employee of the company, where if we do it right, every single person in the company understands how they fit into our strategy and how they can impact positive value creation for our shareholders, our residents, and consumers.
And how is, you talked about the shifts in strategy in the last year, or the year that has gone by, the last 12 months, or the 12 months that are going to come forward. Where do you see the shift? How are you shifting your strategy? If you can share that, I hope it's not proprietary, but
No, absolutely. So, big picture, our strategy is to meet the demands of our consumers. We need to build the homes that consumers want to build. We need to build the right commercial product with that. That's a restaurant, a shopping center, a bar, a multifamily apartment building, an office, a hospital that meets the demands of our consumers.
Okay.
And we're doing that using our free cash flow from land sales to home builders, from recurring NOI of our operating assets, our kind of revenue from rents, if you will, and from profits of selling condos.
Okay.
There are times where we take all of that cash flow and invest it into developments as fast as we can because there's a tremendous amount of demand. And there are times like today where I think there's an uncertain economic environment.
Yes.
I think that there's a much more focus on the uncertainty within the capital markets and the availability of debt capital for real estate owners.
Yes.
And as a result, we're continuing to invest in our development pipeline, albeit with a little bit more hesitancy and a focus on only hitting the best projects while maintaining a higher cash balance and more liquidity for this clearly cloudy capital markets.
Yeah, and the interest rates have gone up, which is, I hear that in the next year or two, many of these projects are going to come, going to be up for refinancing, and that is going to create, I don't know how much of that you're seeing or what you see in the marketplace.
Well, this is something that we've been focused on for a couple of years, and going back to the end of in 2022, we did $2 billion of financing.
Okay.
$1 billion of which were just in the fourth quarter of loan of 2022, because we didn't want to be part of what I think the media would call the looming maturity wall.
Okay.
Which to your point, is coming.
Yes.
And the ability to refinance a multifamily apartment building, the ability to refinance an office or a hotel is much harder today than it was yesterday, last year, certainly 2 years ago.
Right.
Because rates are higher.
Yes.
Even though rents have gone up, your operating expenses have probably gone up more. Taxes, I mean, especially within Houston, doubled. Insurance costs doubled. Utilities facing high inflationary pressures. And the cash flow isn't there to service the same debt load at a higher interest rate. So those that have the ability to pay down loans, have decent balance sheets and liquidity will survive. Those that don't, there's not going to be capital available for them. And
So
I think we're going to see a lot of loans foreclose on assets, a lot of lenders that will perhaps blend and extend, for a short period of time.
Right.
But I think there's going to be a bit of distress in the commercial real estate sector over the next several years.
So I would presume that the Fed is aware of all of this. That they're looking at tamping down inflation today, but what it is going to do to the economy in 2024, 25, 26, because we have seen interest rates go up in the last 18 months. We have really not seen. Now, there are a lot of sectors of the economy which have already felt it, but the consumer still stays healthy. Are we getting ready for a shock, or certainly some uncomfortable times, right? When the interest rate hits reality?
I don't know that the shock is coming.
Okay.
But I do think we're going to see more pain. And let's face it, the Fed's moving of interest rates creates an impact to inflation, creates an impact to the economy several quarters later.
Yes,
right? It doesn't
it's a lag.
Right. And that lag is not more present than it is in commercial real estate.
Yes.
Right. And I don't think that we've seen the impact of the rate increases in commercial real estate yet. It's coming.
Okay.
And I do think that there is going to be some pain that comes. Now, if you roll back the clock to the last time capital markets were this challenging, and we're not as challenged as we were back in 08, 09 post-Lehman.
Right.
We're better than we were then, but not that much.
Okay.
The federal government stepped in and created programs called TARP and TALF, which allowed lenders to get backstopped by the government to reopen the lending markets and get the banks back engaged, to reopen the CMBS market and to get that securitization of real estate engaged. They're not going to do that today because that works very counter to the anti-inflationary policies that they put in place.
Yes. No, and even in the banking crisis, the earlier in the year where the government was stepping in, but mostly it was the larger private banks who were stepping in and taking care of the smaller regional banks, right? And thankfully that has, I say thankfully, but the best of what I can see is that seems to have stabilized. But we don't know, what else is there, which others is going to drop.
Regional banks have stabilized.
Yes.
But they're not lending.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that one-off small office building, that one-off small multifamily building that, an individual owner, an investor, a group of folks get together, 3 or 4, and buy that.
Yes.
Those are the lenders that fund those smaller assets, regional banks.
Yes.
They're gone. They're just worried about their own balance sheet. The big banks are getting increased scrutiny from the federal government, higher reserve requirements.
Yes.
And very little repayments.
Yes.
Right? They used to get on a construction book. I talked to one of the large Wall Street banks last week. He said, usually between 40 and 50% of my book pays off every year. Just construction loans, because they're 1, 3, 5-year construction loans.
Right.
This year, I'm going to get low to mid single digits.
Ooh.
So he can't put more money out.
He can't. The
big banks
cannot turn over that money. Yes.
Yeah, shorter balance sheets, regional banks out of the market. So then you think, well, private equity, the shadow banks.
Yes.
But so many of those require lines of credit and repo or other sorts of financing from the big banks.
Yes.
And if the big banks aren't making those loans, they're out of the market.
Yes.
So something has to give. Personally, I feel like the CMBS market is a natural relief valve.
Okay.
That when those CMBS bond investors feel comfortable coming back to the market and spreads come down a little bit, we'll see that help ease the pain. So it won't be that, hit the wall of distress.
Yes.
But there will be some pain as we figure this out.
Now, if I look at Wall Street, of course, this year has put behind it recession fears, or certainly a severe recession, because stocks have rallied and they're holding well, and I thank them for that. But watching the future years, I wonder how all of this is going to. I hope that we'll still have a soft landing. I hope the real estate market holds up. It's a big part of the economy, but it also creates challenges. So how does your board? So what do you go and tell your board, David? Is that we're getting ready for a very challenging environment. So please lower my growth goals, or how does this discussion happen, David? Or do they go, look, David, you're the smartest guy on earth. You're going to figure out growing even more in this challenging environment.
Yeah.
What is that conversation like?
So take a step back. For Howard Hughes, we're never focused on next quarter.
Okay.
Our board has never asked me what next quarter's earnings are going to be. We're building communities. These communities take decades to build.
Yes.
They want to know what our intrinsic value is, what our net asset value is going to be in 1, 3, 5, 7 years from now.
Okay.
And are we making the right decisions today to grow the value of the company on a per share basis?
Yes.
Right. And as a result, there's always some focus on making sure that we're reinvesting and developing at outsized risk-adjusted returns.
Yes.
But never so much pressure that they would ever want me to risk the future of the company because we don't have liquidity for a dark day.
Okay.
And if we're worried about what we're going to be worth in 5 years, we have to be around in 5 years.
Yes. Yes.
And if the downside is that I was a little too conservative, but we lived to fight another day and we might have missed out on 1 or 2 developments, that's a risk I'll take with our board and have look them in the eye and say, I thought we made the right decision, and could we have been more aggressive? Sure.
Yes.
But we're still here.
Yes. 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 Great point. I want to ask you about. I know we're running out of time here, but I want to ask you about, as you think about your strategy and you think about the customer perspective, right? You talked a little bit about making sure that you understand what your customer wants. Talk to us a little bit about that. How does that flow into the strategy? What are you seeing there?
Oh, so really about understanding our consumer, it has to be on a local level. And as a result, we're a decentralized organization. I have a regional president from, Ward Village in Hawaii to Seaport here in New York City that is responsible for understanding the pulse of our consumer in each one of those regions.
Okay.
And helping us decide where that consumer demand is. Sometimes it's very easy, right? We have 6 multifamily buildings in the Woodlands. I'm 98% leased. We're increasing our rates 10% year over year. Clearly, we need more apartments in the Woodlands.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, that's easy. We can build more apartments.
Yes.
Some of the other areas are a little bit more nuanced, and there's less, quantitative evidence, more qualitative evidence, a little bit more research than research.
Yes.
And sometimes those are great art installations that activate a area that weren't active weeks or months ago.
To stimulate
that's
demand.
a ballpark. Sometimes that's a playground.
Yes.
Those are the things that having local presence and local teams that are part of the fabric of the community help surface those areas of need and demand. Now, sometimes those areas, like building a multifamily building, create a lot of value for Howard Hughes.
Yes.
And I can show you on a spreadsheet that value.
Yes.
Sometimes it's creates a lot of value, but I can't show you on a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Because if you create that next park, that next amenity, that next art installation,
it's not a direct link.
ROI.
Yes.
But if our home prices are higher than they were before, or higher than the surrounding communities, if more businesses choose to relocate into our communities, if our quality of life is better and we're continued to rank as some of the best places to live, there's a thread of connectivity, if not a line, but not a line item in an Excel model, if you will.
Yes. No, I appreciate that. I love that point. And I'm realizing, David, is that we need to schedule like a 2-hour conversation, because there are so many questions that I want to ask. But sir, I hope everybody who has watched this will come join us September 29th, because imagine the discussion that we're going to have when we get more detailed and in person I hope you will all take the time to come to the customer symposium on September 29th. Sir, what is it that we have 30 seconds? What is it that you want to highlight? What is going to be your message to the world on September 29th?
Look, at the end of the day, I think that we're building to meet the demands of our residents, consumers, and tenants. We're building to meet the demands of our employees that live in those communities. And we have the most amazing symbiotic relationship between profitability of our corporation and quality of life of our residents.
Yes.
If we deliver them a great quality of life, we do better.
Yes.
Unlike any other traditional developer, as a community builder, we're completely linked and aligned with those that we service within our communities.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. David, I'm looking forward. I can't wait for September 29th to have our discussion there with you and other very powerful CEOs. What a discussion is going to be. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking the time today. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Ravi. Appreciate it.